let's talk about signs and symptoms. Like, what should people be looking for, or what could be some common signs? They're not always just on the news, but
Yeah, the signs and symptoms can be super tricky just because for every kiddo, they can be different. Some kids will devote themselves to school and focus so hard on school to try to kind of get away from their thoughts of that they will suddenly start getting really good grades and do really well.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Discover Seguin. I am your co-host, Melissa Elizondo, and today we are going to be talking about a heavier topic than normal because I'm at the Children's Advocacy Center here with Christy Williams, and we're just going to get straight into it. Can you tell us, first of all, tell us your title and then what it is that is done here?
Yeah, I'm the executive director of the Guadalupe County Children's Advocacy Center. And here at the center, we are a nonprofit agency. We work with children and families when there are allegations of child abuse or neglect. If a child has been a witness to a crime or has been a victim of a crime, then they might come here being referred by law enforcement or Child Protective Services or our local prosecution office. And what we do is we assist them in the investigation. So we work alongside those partners in law enforcement, Child Protective Services, and prosecution to ensure that they have a cohesive case, that they get all the information that they need, and that we do that mostly through a forensic interview.
Okay, so tell us what a forensic interview is in y'all's world here.
Yeah, so it sounds like a scary word. It really isn't. It is just a fact-finding interview of a child. So it's basically effectively a child's statement. It's done by people who are trained in child development, childhood linguistics, memory, suggestibility, disclosure process, all of those things that we need to know going into talking to a child about what they may have experienced. And it's done here at our advocacy center or in our location in Shirts. Occasionally we'll go and do mobile forensic interviews, but that's usually kind of extenuating circumstances that would have us do that. If they're in the hospital or they can't physically make it to the center, we can go to them. And it is a non-leading, non-interrogative, fact-finding interview where we try to elicit as many details from that child as possible about what they may have experienced or witnessed and provide that cohesive statement to law enforcement and Child Protective Services.
Is they're not done in the cold room with the light flashing on them. They're in the playroom, right?
They're actually, this is one of our forensic interview rooms that we're sitting in today. It's the one that we don't use this one as often. It's a little bit smaller than the one that we typically use. And the one we typically use that's across the hall is also on an outside wall, so we have less sound from inside the building. But this is the room. I mean, it's a very comfortable space, comfortable seating. We've got a few tools that we can use when we're talking to kids. It's not a space for playing when we're talking about the abuse, though the kids can have like a fidget or a weighted animal or something like that. We typically don't bring like noisy toys into a forensic interview because they might keep us from hearing what the child has to say. But the building itself is very child friendly. It's not like kiddos going to the police department or to the Child Protective Services or Department of Family and Protective Services office. And by having a children's advocacy center, we're really minimizing the number of times that kiddos have to talk about what they've been through. Prior to CACs and multidisciplinary teams working together, a child would most likely tell either someone in their household or someone at school, and then they'd have to go tell a patrol person. Unless it happened at school, then maybe they had to tell like the next teacher who that teacher then consulted with. Now, what do we do? Oh, let's go tell the counselor. And now what do? We go tell the principal. And so that kid sometimes was having to tell their story multiple times before it even got to the authorities that needed to hear it to be able to help and keep them safe. So we work really hard to educate the community and the schools to make sure that kiddos aren't having to tell their story so many times.
So they make an outcry. What is the next step through the school? I'm just curious.
They are supposed to report it. Depending on whether or not that child is in immediate danger of going home that same day, they can call the hotline for child abuse and neglect here in Texas. It's 1-800-252-5400 for everybody except law enforcement has their own number that gets them faster. Or they can report online. If they are afraid of that child and their immediate safety for going home that day, they should really call 911.
Got it. So when they come here, when they're referred to you and you're doing the interview, I assume, or you have cameras in here.
Yes.
So who's watching them?
The law enforcement officer assigned, so the actual detective or investigator assigned, and the Department of Family and Protective Services investigator assigned.
Are they here on site when that happens?
Yes.
Are they talking to the interviewer?
No, we don't have that technology here. We actually prefer that we talk to them prior to their interview, find out what they are concerned about, what they know, get baseline information basically, and what they hope to gain from the interview. The interviewer is, by not having earbud, I feel better able to be their own individual, unbiased person going into that interview without anybody talking in their ear and kind of messing up their train of thought. So we don't have earbuds here. I know some CACs do, and they've got policies and procedures that go along with that. But we actually step out. So whenever we get to a point in the interview where we can't think of anything else to say or ask the child, then we step out and leave the child in here. It's a secure space. They're on camera the whole time. We give them something to color or draw with if they want to. And we just step into the back hallway, which is 10 feet, something like that. Talk to the team. We see if there's anything that we need to further explore, anything we need to go back to. If there's anything that we missed asking about, we can find that out from them. Sometimes they'll even learn information while we're in the interview, especially if the investigation is pretty fresh and new and we got the kiddos in the interview pretty quickly. Typically, if there's like a murder, or maybe they witnessed something like that, they may have additional information that they didn't have whenever we went into the interview, so they could share that information with us if they feel like they should. And then sometimes they'll also give us evidence to present to the kiddo and say, hey, we have this thing. Can you tell us about it? What do you know about this picture? Can you tell us about it? And then we either have something else we need to talk to them about and we come back and do that, or we don't and we come back and just end the interview in it, kind of a neutral space.
Do you do any sort of medical examinations here, or is that done at the hospital?
We use GRMC for that.
Yeah. So what, I want to kind of switch into giving some advice for parents and guardians who may have a child who does an outcry, because I know there's mistakes that can be made that are going to affect the case, right? And I learned this from an interview I did years ago with the New Braunfels one. And so I wanted to kind of get into that because I thought it was really helpful for the audience. So if you were giving tips or training schools or parents or whoever, what would you say, to help them if this ever happened?
I think even before that, what's really important is that parents start talking to their kids from a very, very early age about their body parts. If you're having conversations with your child when they're in the bathtub at 2 years old about what their body parts are called and actual real names for their body parts, not cutesy names or food names that could be mistaken by people, because most often kiddos don't tell their parent about their abuse. They tell a school professional or something like that. So it needs to be words that other people outside of your home would understand to be a private part. So I think first and foremost, starting as early as possible. Now, say you have a teenager and you didn't do those things. I think talking about that stuff as soon as you realize you should is really important. And yes, it can be uncomfortable and people will not enjoy it and the kids won't enjoy it, especially if they're older. But it's important because if they know that they can talk to you about these things when nothing has happened, then they will be more likely to talk to you about them if something has happened. So then to answer your question, if a child has disclosed that somebody has touched them, it's really important to remain calm. If you become upset, your child will automatically assume most of the time that you're upset with them. And so you can, if you do become upset, explain to them why you're upset. I'm upset because this person never should have hurt you. And I'm really sad that you've been through this. So I think making sure that you communicate what's going on with you and your reaction to it can be super helpful for the kiddo. I would say even if you don't initially believe your child, don't let them know. Go through the whole process, get all of the information, because what happens in cases like this is that not only the child is groomed by the person doing the abuse, everyone around that child is too. So it's more likely than not that if you know this person that has done sexual abuse or physical abuse to your child, that they have taken measures to make sure that you wouldn't suspect them of that. They are the good person. They're the helpful person. They're the one that bends over backwards to help you and pick them up whenever you can't do something, or to buy them the things that you can't buy them. So they work really hard
To be the good guy.
to be the good guy.
Wow.
So just from the onset, try to believe. And if it turns out not to be true, no harm, no foul. But if you immediately let your child know that you don't believe them and it ends up being true, that can have a lot of harm and damage for them.
Absolutely. It's sad. I know some cases like that. So let's talk about what kind of services, or where do you point people after an outcry for counseling or whatever they need to heal?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a fantastic center here. So we don't just do those forensic interviews. While the forensic interview is taking place, the non-offending caregiver should have brought the child to the center. And every once in a while, there's not a safe person that can be readily identified in that stage of the investigation. So sometimes nobody comes with them. But most of the time, 99% of the time, there's a non-offending supportive caregiver that brings them to the center for their forensic interview. And we have family advocates that sit down with those people and talk to them about the process and what they can expect, and some signs and symptoms of abuse and the grooming process and all of the kind of nuanced things that go along with child sexual abuse and child physical abuse. And we provide them with information and resources, and we give baseline information from them so we can keep up with them. And we call them back within the first 1 to 2 weeks to check on them, because we also know that we kind of, I'm going to date myself right now, but we sound like the grown-ups in Charlie Brown, like wah, 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 because they're trying to take in so much information in that time of trauma that we know we need to follow up and make sure that everything is clear and answer any questions that they have. And we also know that our partners are really busy. Law enforcement and child protective services have so many cases coming at them. It's just a fire hose blast at them. And so they don't really keep up with calling people back and having check-ins with them typically. And once they file their case, they don't have cause to call them afterwards. And it can take 2 or more years to get to the prosecution process where they are going to start getting calls from the prosecutor's office. So we try to fill the gap. Years ago, we didn't. And what we found is that people thought nobody cared and that the case wasn't moving forward. And so they just tried to put it behind them. And when they got those calls 2 years later, they said, we haven't thought about this in 2 years. Nobody cared about it then. We don't want to testify. So we try to fill that gap and help them understand the process, because it is not built for kids. We also, in those family advocacy sessions, figure out what needs they have. Sometimes it's basic needs. Sometimes this is the breadwinner of the family who has sexually abused the kiddo or kiddos in the house. And now mom may or may not have been working, but couldn't and can't afford the lifestyle that they've been living in. This happens a lot. And now they're trying to figure out, how are we going to pay the electric bill? How are we going to pay rent? How are we going to buy food and clothes and all of those things? And so we do have a fundraiser that we do that helps us to kind of fill the gap sometimes for those things while they're trying to kind of get settled and figure things out. We help kind of figure out resources in the community as well, because there's tons of resources in this community to help people with things like that. Salvation Army and all kinds of groups. And then we also talk about counseling. Because what we know is that if people don't get help, they are more likely to be abused in the future, because they're not going to see the signs and symptoms of somebody attempting to groom them. And our kiddos in the future are going to be more likely to be abused too, because they're not going to see the signs and symptoms of somebody grooming them. unless they have some counseling to help them through all of that. We also have kids who have really bad dreams and really big fear, big anxiety. And so they are able to work through those things in counseling. And we have an amazing counseling program here. Super proud of the work that our counselors do. We have a clinical director who carries about a 10-person caseload at a time, an operations director who also does. And then we have 5 full-time therapists that carry caseloads of 25 clients apiece. So they see 25 clients a week. We have 4 therapeutic family advocates who see 15 clients a week. They do the family advocacy step and for half of their time, and they the other half of their time do therapy. They don't do therapy with people they did advocacy with, but they can serve anybody they didn't. And then we usually have 3 to 4 master's level therapy interns, and they usually carry about 15 clients apiece at any given time too.
So a lot of people. We're adding these numbers.
It is a ton of people that we're seeing every single week for counseling. And this isn't just like come in and sit down and talk. This is evidence-based, trauma-informed, just really specified training that they have gotten to be able to work with these kids. And we send them to all kinds of training, and they are amazing at what they do. We have play therapists. We have people who do EMDR. We have TFCBT. I mean, there's just all of the alphabets, that go along with training. And these ladies do an amazing job.
So what age children, like 18 and under? Or what happens if they make an outcry at 17 and it's 2 years, and still keep working?
They're still ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still are a client of ours. So we actually serve 0 to 17 for forensic interview, for case management. 2 is the youngest that will attempt a forensic interview. There are some 2-year-olds that can interview like a 5-year-old, and there's some 5-year-olds that interview like a 2-year-old. You just never know what a kiddo is going to be like in the interview room until you try. But we also interview people with a mental capacity of 2 to 17. So that happens occasionally too. And then for our counseling services, it's really 3 and up. We provide services not only to the child who was the victim, but also to their siblings if they were impacted by it, and their caregivers who were impacted by it. And so we could 0 to 100, 101, whatever to somebody's age might be. But yeah, we serve them all.
So let's talk about signs and symptoms. Like, what should people be looking for, or what could be some common signs? They're not always just limited, but
Yeah, the signs and symptoms can be super tricky. Just because for every kiddo they can be different. Some kids will devote themselves to school and focus so hard on school to try to kind of get away from their thoughts of that they will suddenly start getting really good grades and do really well. Some kids do the exact opposite. So I think a change in grades is a good symptom or sign there. If your kiddo is normally getting A's and B's, but all of a sudden is getting straight A's and is really focused on school and maybe gets really upset about that, that could be something that could be a sign of that. Or if they're a straight A student, all of a sudden they're getting C's and they don't have any explanation for why. Kiddos who are not readily wanting to go home, not readily wanting to spend time with certain people, afraid of activities that they maybe weren't afraid of doing before, who maybe are kind of being more promiscuous than they were before, talking about body parts that they wouldn't have talked about before, wearing things that are more promiscuous. If they have items that you did not purchase for them, that can also be a sign of that these might be gifts from the person who is doing something to them to kind of coerce them to do and to participate in what they're doing. It's really runs the gamut for what could be the possibility for that. It's just look for change.
Yeah. I also heard sometimes wetting themselves all of a sudden.
Yeah, for young ones, that can definitely be. If they have bathroom practices that regress, or sleeping practices that regress. If they were always able to sleep in their own bed and now all of a sudden they can't, they keep coming in your room, they're having nightmares or something's bothering them, they don't want to be alone, pay attention to that too. Anything that is them regressing would be a concern.
Okay, yeah. So is there anything else you want us to know? I know we could probably talk about this forever.
Yep, probably so.
Yeah. Do you have another location?
We do.
Okay. But yeah, I'd say it's a county-wide thing, and Guadalupe County is growing like crazy. So there's another location.
Yeah, we are currently at the old Corbett School in Schertz. It's at 301 Main Street in Schertz. But we are looking to build a facility like this over there. So we actually opened our doors on January 2nd of 2004. So we're 21 years old now. And back in 2016, we started a satellite office in Cibolo. And prior to that, we served, now Cibolo and Schertz were way smaller back then than they are now. But when we did serve those clients, they only came for their forensic interview. I could count on one hand the number of clients who came back for counseling. Because as you can imagine, taking off work once a week, going and picking up your child from school, driving either down 78 behind a tractor or down 10 and get stuck in a wreck, come here for a 50-minute session, drive all the way back. You're not likely to take your child back to school. You're not likely to go back to work. And who can do that for more than a couple of weeks, usually?
Yeah.
So we knew that we had to have a site closer to the people over in that west end of the county. And so we started a satellite in 2016. We had to move in December of 2018 to the location that we're in now because we were leasing and it was purchased and they wanted to use it for their business. They were very kind. They let us, use the whole term of the lease. So we've been in the school district's building for a number of years now. And our plan in the next few years is to start raising the funds to build a building like this one over there.
Okay, so let's talk about fundraisers. What was it that you do to get money in to help these people?
Yeah, we have Designer Purse Bingo, which is probably one of the two ways that people know of us, if they know of us at all, that and our pinwheel displays in April. So in November, we do a Designer Purse Bingo here in Seguin, and in May, we do one over in Schertz. We also, this past year, had a lot of fundraisers. We had a new development director, Ken Keel. He did an amazing job. This next year, we're going to do 4. We're going to do the 2 purse bingos. We're going to do a golf tournament in April, and then a casino bash in August. So it's going to be just a fun night out for people to go and play. But those fundraisers really do help us kind of fill the gaps where other funding doesn't. So we get federal funding through the Victims of Crime Act. We get state funding through HHSC. Both of those funding sources come through Children's Advocacy Centers of Texas, which is our funding, our parent organization. And then we apply for other, grants and foundation money as well. We get money from the city and the county, cities and in the county, and churches and corporations and individual giving too.
So how can the public help you? What would be something they could do to really help your efforts in the community?
Yeah, I think, coming and volunteering would be a fantastic way, especially for people who don't have the means to give financially. Obviously, a financial gift is always helpful and needed. We've had a few people leave us in their will. And that is something like maybe you can't financially contribute now, but you have the ability to leave a legacy of your contribution. So that's an amazing way to kind of carry that forward. We have people who go on our website and choose to give $25 a month, and it automatically goes on their credit card. And that is $25 we know we can count on month to month. So it's really helpful. But participate in our fundraisers, volunteer, give financially.
What opportunities do you have here?
So we have family greeters who are the people, whenever the kiddos come for their forensic interview, they're here, they greet them, they play with them, they get them snacks, they get them drinks, they make sure they know where the restroom is. And when they leave, they give them these amazing bags that are made by other volunteers that are handmade. They have usually a handmade quilt in them and stuffed animals and toiletries and books and toys. And they're just amazing little kind of keepsake gifts for kiddos, letting them know that people in the community care about them. So we have volunteers who make those bags and people who do drives to fill the bags. We have on our website a list of things that we typically kind of put in those bags, or our volunteers do. So people can do a drive at their business, put out a box and list the items that we're looking for to fill. We have volunteers who help with administrative tasks, who help with the yard or the garden. We also have board members, so those are volunteers as well, and help with governance and oversight and just making sure that we are growing in ways that we should be growing and we don't get off mission, and kind of give me some support and guidance on making sure that we're doing all the things we should.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been very insightful, and I'm sure there's much more that can be said. What is your website?
gccac.net.
Okay. So you can go on their website there, see where you can donate, volunteer, support. And if you hopefully ever have an outcry, just know that there is a resource here in Seguin, supporting the community in the Stark space, bringing life to the Stark space. So thank you so much, Christy, for being on the show. We are so proud to be able to share this with everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. See you next time.